The blunderbuss is a muzzle-loading firearm with a short, large-caliber barrel, which is flared at the muzzle and frequently throughout the entire bore, and used with shot and other projectiles of relevant quantity and/or caliber. The blunderbuss could be considered to be an early form of shotgun, which was often adapted to military and defensive use. It was effective at short ranges, but lacked accuracy for targets at long range. A blunderbuss in handgun form was called a dragoon, and it is from this that the term dragoon evolved. Etymology: the term blunderbuss is of Dutch origin, from the Dutch word donderbus, which is a combination of donder, meaning thunder, and bus, meaning pipe, box, especially from boxwood. The transition from donder to blunder is thought by some to be deliberate. The term blunder was originally used in a transitive sense, synonymous with to confuse, and this is thought to describe the stunningly loud report of the large-bore, short-barreled blunderbuss. The term dragoon is taken from the fact that early versions were decorated with a carving in the form of a mythical dragon's head around the muzzle. The muzzle blast would then give the impression of a fire-breathing dragon. Construction: the blunderbuss could be considered an early shotgun and served in similar roles, while various older accounts often list the blunderbuss as being loaded with various scrap iron, rocks, or wood. This would result in damage to the bore of the gun. It was typically loaded with a number of lead balls smaller than the bore diameter. Barrels were made of steel or brass. The muzzle was flared with the intent not only to increase the spread of the shot but also to funnel powder and shot into the weapon, making it easier to reload on horseback or on a moving carriage. However, modern experiments have shown that the flared muzzle has no noticeable effect on shot spread. The flared muzzle is the defining feature of the blunderbuss, differentiating it from large-caliber carbines. The distinction between the blunderbuss and the musketoon is less distinct, as musketoons were also used to fire shot, and some had flared barrels. Blunderbusses were typically short, with barrels under 2 feet in length, at a time when a typical musket barrel was over 3 feet long. One source, describing arms from the early to middle 17th century, lists the barrel length of a wheel-lock dragoon at around 11 inches, compared to a 16-inch length for a blunderbuss. The blunderbuss, and especially the dragoon, was typically issued to troops such as cavalry, who needed a lightweight, easily handled firearm. The dragoon became so associated with cavalry and mounted infantry that the term dragoon became synonymous with mounted infantry. In addition to the cavalry, the blunderbuss found use for other duties in which the shotgun-like qualities were desirable, such as for guarding prisoners or defending a mail coach, and its use for urban combat was also recognized. Blunderbusses were also commonly carried by officers on naval warships, privateers, and by pirates for use in close-quarters boarding actions. The Portuguese Marines used it widely in the 17th century. Many types of ammunition, including gravel and sand, could be shot. The blunderbuss used by the British Mail Service during the period of 1788 to 1816 was a flintlock with a 14-inch long flared brass barrel, brass trigger guard, and an iron trigger and lock. A typical British mail coach would have a single postal employee on board, armed with a blunderbuss and a pair of pistols, to guard the mail from highwaymen. One 18th-century coaching blunderbuss in another British collection had a brass barrel 17 inches long, flaring to 2 inches at the muzzle. It was also provided with a spring-loaded bayonet, which was held along the barrel by a catch and would spring forward into place when released. While the blunderbuss is often associated with the Plymouth Colony Pilgrims of 1620, evidence suggests that the blunderbuss was relatively scarce in the American colonies. After the Battle of Lexington in 1775, British General Thomas Gage occupied Boston, Massachusetts, and upon negotiating with the town committee, Gage agreed to let the inhabitants of Boston leave town with the families and effects if they surrendered all arms, while most of the residents of Boston stayed. Those who left under the agreement surrendered 1,778 long arms, 634 pistols, 273 bayonets, and only 38 blunderbusses. The blunderbuss did still have its civilian applications, however. The Lewis and Clark expedition carried a number of blunderbusses, some of which were mounted and used as small swivel guns on the pirogues. By the middle 19th century, the blunderbuss was considered obsolete and was replaced in military use by the carbine. The latter was considered by some to be a poor replacement, and a blunderbuss still found use by civilians as a defensive firearm. The carbine in use by the British during the Crimean War was lampooned in Punch magazine as being able, in the hands of a good marksman, to hit a hayrick 80 yards. In popular culture, a bandit uses one in the beginning of Once Upon a Time in the West. In Donald Duck comics, and especially those by Carl Barks, Scrooge McDuck often uses an old-fashioned blunderbuss with a funnel-shaped muzzle from his days in the Klondike Gold Rush to fend off the IRS and traveling salesmen, as well as the Beagle Boys and Magic-a-Despel. In the 1991 film Beauty and the Beast, the main antagonist Gaston uses a blunderbuss for hunting. In the 2000 video game American McGee's Alice, Alice's blunderbuss is a secret weapon which can only be found in 2 hidden locations and is the most powerful weapon in the game. In the 2012 film Looper, loopers carry a modern version of a blunderbuss. Loopers, whose job is to execute bound prisoners at close range, use a blunderbuss, because it's impossible to hit anything further than 15 yards, and impossible to miss anything closer. In an add-on for the 2010 video game Red Dead Redemption called Undead Nightmare, the protagonist John Marston received a blunderbuss and his initial reaction was, "A blunderbuss? What is this?" 1850, pointing out the gun's antiquity, because the blunderbuss was discarded in the mid-1800s while the game takes place in 1911. In the video game Bloodborne, the blunderbuss is available as one of the initially available firearms. In the video game BioShock Infinite, the blunderbuss is available as a weapon in the game's downloadable content. In the video game Call of Duty Black Ops 2, the blunderbuss is available as a weapon in the Zombies game mode DLC map Mob of the Dead. In the video game Saints Row IV, it appears as a skin for the pump-action shotgun in the video game Assassin's Creed IV. Black Flag, the blunderbuss is a purchasable pistol, which uses the same ammo as the flintlock and other pistols, noticeably ignoring the popular shotgun analogy. In the video game Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, the blunderbuss is a weapon available in supply drops for use in multiplayer.